friends, and welcome to Sleepy Time Tales, a podcast aimed at helping you to get a good night's sleep. Do you find your mind plagued with the stresses of modern life, especially when the lights are out and you're trying to get a restful night? Does your spinning mind keep you awake? Follow my voice down the path towards a good night's rest. Listen to me tell a story that will keep your mind from wandering to your daytime problems, the ones you can't solve right now and will be easier to solve well rested. Listen to my voice and allow yourself to drift, following the twists and turns of the story, but slowly letting go and drifting into sleep. Before we get on with the show, I'd like to take a couple of minutes of your time and ask for a little bit of support. The show is brought to you by supporters on Patreon. I know I'm hearing from people all the time there's more reviews coming and more emails coming from people to say how valuable they find the show. And those supporters who have the means to help fund it, to keep it going and help me to reach new audiences are very much appreciated. So if you're making use of Sleepy Time Tales regularly to help you to deal with sleeplessness, and you have the urge to support the show, and most importantly, if you have the means, please check out patreon.com/sleepytimetales or go to the link in the show notes or from the website to take a look at what you can get for your monthly contribution. This week I'd like to welcome Joan to the Patreon family. Thank you so much, Joan, for your signing up, for your support. I'm very, very grateful for you helping to keep the lights on. But if you're more inclined to make a once-off contribution or occasional one rather than committing to something every month, then you can take a look at buymeacoffee.com/sleepytimetales, also linked in the show notes, and there you can, buy me a coffee without even needing to sign up for the service. This week I'd like to thank Carrie and Erica, who both sent me some support through Buy Me a Coffee, and I'm very grateful to you ladies as well. But another huge way you can help the show is simply to spread the word. I don't do any promotion or advertising or anything like that, because I believe that the best way to reach new people is through satisfied listeners, and so you folks are the engine for that. If there is someone in your life you think will benefit from listening to Sleepy Time Tales, simply let them know. If you recommend the show on social media, make sure to tag me in so that I can see and I can thank you. That's at Sleepy Time Tales on Instagram or Twitter. Last but not least, of course, I need to give a shout out to the music, which since episode 100 has been Sweet Night and Friends by Kumiko. Their music is available on their website at loyaltyfreakmusic.com. I've also linked the website in the show notes, as they've got some very cool stuff that they release under different names that I recommend taking a look at. Thank you very much for taking your time to listen to this, and let's get back to the show. So what exactly is Sleepy Time Tales? What is it for? This strange thing, this podcast that you're supposed to fall asleep to. But it's the 21st century and lack of sleep is a health crisis. And this is a podcast that is intended to help those that it can to get a restful night. Do you find yourself lying awake at night, with your mind spinning in emotions in turmoil with anxieties of 21st century life? Do you wake up in the middle of the night and find yourself not quite able to doze back off at 3 a.m.? I'm here to help. My name is Dave, and I'm your narrator, here to help you into a restful night. Sleepy Time Tales is intended to be used as a distraction to what keeps you awake at night, or sometimes background noise or company. That's why I make these episodes quite long, so that I'm here for you without any pressure of the end coming anytime soon. There are a couple of different ways to engage with the show. For me, I need something to focus on, a story or an event that lets me keep my mind on a specific point, to stop it from spinning out into stress and anxieties. I need to focus just enough not to resist the embrace of sleep when it comes for me. But maybe you need something a bit different, maybe something more like background noise or white noise, some kind of droning voice that, like the equivalent to some people, need the sound of the sea or the rain. But however you're engaging with the show, it doesn't really matter as long as it's working for you, and it's important that you don't try to force sleep. Just keep a light mental grip on the thread of the story and allow sleep to come for you naturally. Because obviously I'm hoping that you're asleep before I get to the end of the episode, but it's important not to feel pressurized. If this is your first night, it probably won't work for you. I suggest giving it a good solid 3 nights to get used to the idea, to get used to my voice or my accent, or maybe even just the idea of this whole thing, this strange idea. It's also possible one episode isn't long enough, because maybe your problem isn't going to sleep. Maybe your problem is waking up in the middle of the night. What I recommend, because it's what works for me, is to let the podcast run all night. I playlist the shows that I listen to long enough to run through the night, and I let them go. That way, when I wake up at 3 a.m., and if you do the same and you find yourself awake at that time, you can just pop your earbuds back in and allow yourself to go straight back to sleep again. You can do the same thing if you wake up just a little bit before the alarm, like 30 minutes or 60 minutes. I do that myself, and I got to tell you that it may sound strange, but allowing yourself deep relaxation right before the alarm is satisfying on a whole new level. But it's very important that you try to relax. If you're new to the show and prone to late nights lying staring at the ceiling, this may seem strange to you. So give it a chance. Because I'm here to work with you, to create a safe space, a cocoon in which you can curl up and allow nature to take its course. So if you're still with me, thank you for staying. If you're already asleep, we'll chat again soon. And of course, you aren't hearing me, except maybe in a dream. From the Ontario Teachers' Manuals by the Ontario Department of Education, Household Science in Rural Schools. Copyright Canada, 1918, by the Minister of Education for Ontario. Preface. This manual is issued for the purposes of encouraging the introduction and furthering the progress of household science in the rural schools of this province. There are 903 urban and 5,697 rural schools, and 45.87% of the school population is in attendance at the latter schools. The value of household science as an educational and practical subject has been recognized, to some extent, in the urban schools of the province, but up to the present little attempt has been made to give the subject a place among the activities of the rural schools. There is a widespread impression that it is not possible in household science to give any instruction that is of value without the provision of separate rooms, elaborate equipment, and specially trained teachers. Where these conditions exist, of course, the best work can be accomplished. But even when they cannot be realized, which may be done towards giving definite, useful instruction in the cardinal principles of homemaking, which should be learned by every girl. There is certainly not a single rural school where some practical work in sewing and some valuable lessons in the care of the home may not be given. As for cookery, it is doubtful if there is a single school so small and so helpless that it is unable to use the hot noonday lunch as a method of approach to this branch of the subject. Students of the physical welfare of children are rapidly coming to the conclusion that a warm midday meal greatly increases the efficacy of the pupil and determines to a large extent the results of the afternoon study. There are other benefits to be derived from a school lunch well prepared under proper conditions. In many communities, it has been the means of bringing about a healthy and satisfactory cooperation between the school and the home, of developing a higher social life in the neighborhood, and of introducing into the school a household science course, which has proved a greater benefit to the farmer's wife as to his children. This manual deals entirely with conditions that exist in our rural schools, and outlines only such plans and schemes as can be carried out, even in adverse circumstances, by alert trustees, sympathetic inspectors, and resourceful teachers. Permission has been obtained from the Bureau of Education, Washington, USA, to make use of a recently issued bulletin 3 courses in homemaking for rural schools, and the various bulletins issued by state agricultural colleges. The freest use has been made of this material, and the permission to do so is hereby gratefully acknowledged. Only such theory as can be readily assimilated has been given, and the teacher is advised for further information and to help to consult the manuals issued by the Department of Education on household management and sewing. Those who wish to become thoroughly competent and to earn the highest departmental grants should attend the summer schools provided by the Department of Education. Under certain conditions, the expenses of teachers attending these courses are paid by the department. Nothing has been included or recommended that cannot be accomplished in the average rural school, and trustees, teachers, and inspectors are urged to make a beginning by selecting the lessons that appeal to them as being most suitable to the districts in which their schools are situated. By careful planning and a wise use of the time before and after school and during recess, the regular organization of the school need not be interfered with. And in addition to the educational and social advantages to be derived from undertaking this work, much benefit will result from the increased interest taken in the school by the parents and the general public. It is not essential that the lessons in this manual should be taken exactly in the order given. Any other arrangement called for by the peculiar circumstances of the school is admissible. The Inspector of Manual Training and Household Science is ready at all times to visit rural schools for the purpose of conferring with the public school inspectors, the trustees, and the teachers regarding the introduction of household science as a regular subject of the school curriculum. Household Science in Rural Schools. 3 short courses in homemaking. Introduction. The 3 brief courses in homemaking outlined in this manual have been especially prepared for use in elementary rural schools. They are in no sense complete outlines of the subjects with which they deal. Rather, they indicate a few of the important phases of food study, sewing, and the care of the home with which the pupil in the elementary school should become familiar. The underlying thought for each problem should be, will this help the pupils to live more useful lives, and will it lead to better conditions in their homes? The lessons are purposely made simple, and the plans are definitely outlined, so that even the inexperienced teacher may be able to achieve a certain measure of success. The experienced teacher will find in them suggestions that may be of value in the further development of the course. The teacher who desires to use this course will necessarily have to adapt it to her own community, and it is hoped that she may be able to do this with but little alteration. While conditions of living and choice of foods differ in various parts of the province, the general principles of nutrition, the rules of sanitation, and the methods of cooking and serving are much the same for all. Owing to the difficulty of securing time on the program for frequent lessons in homemaking, each of the courses has been limited to 20 lessons. Some teachers may not be able to have a greater number of lessons during the school year, and they may find it well to carry the 3 courses through 3 consecutive years. In other schools where more frequent lessons can be given, it may be well to offer all 3 courses during 1 year. The courses in cooking and the care of the home can be advantageously combined, as many of the problems in both are related. The lessons in sewing may be given on another day of the week, or it may be well to give them early in the year, to be followed later by the cooking lessons. Thus an opportunity will be furnished for the making of the cooking aprons and the hemming of the towels. It is most desirable that periods of at least 40 minutes should be provided for all the practical lessons. Longer periods will be necessary for some of them, such as the preparation and serving of a meal. If no practical work is undertaken in the lesson, a 40-minute period is sufficient. Library on Home Economics for the Rural School. In addition to the textbooks recommended as sources of special reference for the rural teacher, the following books, bearing on home economics or on methods of teaching, are suggested for the rural school library. These books have been chosen with the threefold purpose of providing references for the teachers, reading matter for the pupils, and a lending library for the parents. Laundering, Balderson, L. Ray, published by the author, Philadelphia, $1.25. Country Life in the Country School, Carney M., Rowe, Peterson & Co., Chicago, $1.25. How the World is Fed, Carpenter, F.O., American Book Company, New York, 60 cents. How the World is Clothed, Carpenter, F.O., American Book Company, New York, 60 cents. How the World is Housed, Carpenter, F.O., American Book Company, New York, 60 cents. How We Are Clothed, Chamberlain, J.F., Macmillan's, Toronto, 40 cents. How We Are Fed, Chamberlain, J.F., Macmillan's, Toronto, 40 cents. How We Are Sheltered, Chamberlain, J.F., Macmillan's, Toronto, 45 cents. Bacteria, Yeasts and Molds in the Home, Con, H.W., Gin & Co., Boston, $1. The Boston Cooking School Cookbook, Farmer, F.M., Little Brown & Co., Boston, $1.80. The Rural School Lunch, Farnsworth, N.W., Web Pub Co., St. Paul, Minnesota, 25 cents. Clothing and Shelter, Kinner, H. and Cooley, A.M. Macmillan's, Toronto, $1.10. Foods and Household Management, Kinner, H. and Cooley, A.M. Macmillan's, Toronto, $1.10. Means and Methods of Agricultural Education, Leek, A.H., Houghton Mifflin Co., New York, $2. Rural Hygiene, Ogden, H.N., Saunders, Philadelphia, $1.50. Health and Cleanliness, O'Shea, M.V. and Kellogg, J.H., Macmillan's, Toronto, 56 cents. Rural Education, Pickard, A.E., Web Publishing Company, St. Paul, Minnesota, $1. Manual of Personal Hygiene, Powell, W.L., Saunders, Philadelphia, $1.50. Feeding the Family, Rose, M.S., Macmillan's, Toronto, $2.10. Food Products, Sherman, H.C., Macmillan's, Toronto, $2. 20 Lessons in the Care of the Home. Suggestions to the teacher. The purpose of this course is to give the pupils instruction in various household tasks, in order that better living conditions may be secured in the homes. The beauty and sacredness of an ideal home life should receive special emphasis, so that the pupils may be impressed with the importance of conscientious work in the performance of the daily household duties. They should have some insight into the sanitary, economic, and social problems that are involved in housekeeping, so that they may develop an increased appreciation of the importance of the homemaker's work. The two most important things to be taught are cleanliness and order. Too much emphasis cannot be placed on the value of fresh air and sunshine, and the necessity of the free use of hot water and soap. The value of property should also be emphasized. Economy in the purchase and handling of house furnishings and equipment should be considered. Instruction should also be given in the care of foods and clothing, and in the care and arrangement of furniture. Simple instruction in the care of babies should be given, since the older children are often responsible, to some extent, for the care of the younger members of their families. In some of the lessons, more subjects may be suggested than the teacher will have time to take up in a single period. In that case, it will be well for her to choose the subject which seems most vital to the immediate needs of the community. In many cases, she may be able to give an increased number of lessons. Practice and drill in all of the processes involved in housewifery are essential to successful training. If a cupboard and a table have been arranged for the use of the cooking classes, Most of the suggested work can be carried out with the school equipment. Where there is no equipment in the school, and school conditions do not approximate home conditions, it may be possible to secure permission to give the lesson after school hours in the home of one of the pupils who lives nearby. In each lesson, the teacher, while giving the pupils helpful general information on the subject under discussion, should strive to impress on them the importance of doing one simple thing well. The rural teacher who is eager to make her schoolroom an attractive place may devote some time in these lessons to such problems as the hanging and the care of simple curtains, the care of indoor plants, the arrangements of pictures, the planning of storage arrangements for supplies and of cupboards for dishes, and the preparations for the serving of the school lunch. In order to teach these lessons effectively, it is desirable to have the following simple equipment on hand. Additional special equipment may be borrowed from their homes. Equipment: broom, 1. Cloths for cleaning, 6. Dishcloths, 2. Dish towels, 12. Dustbrush, 1. Dustpan, 1. Garbage can, covered, 1. Lamp, 1. Oil can, 1. Reference books: Rural Hygiene, Brewer, R.W., Lippincott Company, Philadelphia. The Helpful Farmhouse, Dodd H., Whitcomb and Barrows, Boston. Community Hygiene, Hutchinson, Woods, Houghton Mifflin Company, New York. Foods and Sanitation, Forster, G.H. and Wegley, M. Rowe, Peterson and Co., Chicago. The Home and the Family, Kenner H. and Cooley, A.M., Macmillans, Toronto. Housekeeping Notes, Kittredge, M.H., Whitcomb and Barrows, Boston. Practical Homemaking, Kittredge, M.H., Century Company, New York. A Second Course in Homemaking, Kittredge, M.H., Century Company, New York. Lesson 1. Arrangement and Care of the Kitchen. In arranging the kitchen, the three things of most importance are the stove, the sink, and the kitchen table. If there is no sink in the kitchen, there will be some other place arranged for washing the dishes, probably the kitchen table, and this must be taken into consideration when the furniture is placed. As most of the work is done at the stove and the table, both these must be placed where they will have good light, and they should be close to each other, so that but few steps are necessary for the worker. In furnishing the kitchen, the housekeeper will find a high stool very useful, as will enable her to wash dishes, prepare vegetables, and do other work while seated. All the furniture should be kept so clean and free from dust that the kitchen will have a neat and attractive appearance. A vase of flowers or a potted plant and a washable table cover to be used after the dishes have been put away will help to make this room a pleasant place for the family. Special attention should be given to the ventilation. The kitchen should be thoroughly cleaned after each meal. If it has become dusty or disarranged, it should be put in order before the next meal is to be prepared. While the cooking is underway, everything should be kept in an orderly condition. As soon as the meal is completed, the leftover food should be covered and put away. The scraps and waste material should be gathered and disposed of, and the dishes, pots, and pans should be scraped and washed in hot soapy water, then rinsed in clear hot water, dried and put away. The table should be scrubbed, the stove cleaned, the floor swept and scrubbed wherever necessary, and everything put neatly in its place. Care of the coal or wood range. All spots should be removed from the range by wiping it with old paper. If it is in bad condition, it should be washed with soap and water. If it is oiled occasionally, blacking will not be necessary, but if blacking is used, it should be applied with a cloth and rubbed to a polish with a brush, just as the fire is being started. The ashes and soot flues are back out of the oven, and underneath it should be cleaned out once a week. Directions for building a fire. To build and care for a fire in the coal or wood range, close all the dampers, clean the grate and remove the ashes from the pan. Put on the covers and brush the dust off the stove. Open the creative damper and the oven damper, leaving the check damper closed. Lay some paper, slightly crumpled into rolls, across the base of the grate. Place small pieces of kindling wood across one another, with the large pieces on top. Lay pieces of hardwood or a shovelful of coal on top of the kindling, building so as to admit of the free circulation of air. If the stove is to be polished, rub it with blacking. Light the paper from below. When the fire begins to burn briskly, add coal or wood, then add more when that kindles. When the fire is well started and the blue flame is no longer seen, about 10 minutes, close the oven damper. Close the creative damper when the fire is sufficiently hot. Brush the stove and the floor beneath it as soon as the fire is started. Polish the stove. If the fire becomes too hot, open the check damper. Fill the tea kettle with fresh water and set it on the front of the range. Care of the sink, wash basin, and garbage pail. A neglected sink or garbage pail may be a fruitful source of disease, in addition to attracting water bugs and other pests. Scrap should be never left in the sink. After washing the dishes, it should be thoroughly cleaned, a brush and scouring material being used. The nickel part may be washed with hot soap suds, wiped dry, and polished. Water should never be left in the wash basin. Both the soap dish and the wash basin should be scoured daily. The garbage pail should be emptied and washed every day, and carefully scalded once or twice a week. Preliminary plan. It will be well to have this lesson succeed or follow a cooking lesson, for then the pupils will have a keener interest in the problems of the kitchen. See 20 lessons in cooking, Lesson 1. Method of work. Cleanliness and order are the 2 points to be considered in this lesson. The doing well of each simple household task and the thoughtful arrangement and planning of all parts of the house should be emphasized as being of great importance to the housekeeper's success. Begin the lesson with a discussion of the purpose of the kitchen, then discuss its arrangement from the standpoint of convenience for the work that must be done there. Emphasize the importance of having the furniture so arranged that the work may be done quickly and easily, and that the kitchen may be given a comfortable and attractive appearance. Let the pupils arrange the furniture in the schoolroom. Discuss and demonstrate the care of the stove by the use of the school stove. Assign each pupil a time when she is to look after the stove on succeeding days and grade her on her work. Let each pupil bring a report from home as to what she is doing to help in the care of the home kitchen. Make a specific assignment for homework. Questions used to develop the lesson. What is the purpose of the kitchen? What are the principal articles of furniture in the kitchen? How should we arrange these things? Can we make any general rules as to arrangements? Why is it difficult to keep the kitchen clean? At what times is the kitchen most apt to become disarranged? Why is it important to keep the kitchen in good order? In what order should the kitchen be at the time we begin the preparation of the meal? How should the floor be cleaned? The utensils? What should we do with any leftover food? How should we take care of the stove after the meal? Lesson 2. Care of cupboards and utensils. Subject matter. It is of the utmost importance that the cupboards and other places where food is stored should be kept free from dirt and scraps of food. Ants, cockroaches, mice, and other pests infest dirty places where food is kept, and render a house unfit for human habitation. It requires constant care and watchfulness on the part of the housewife to keep the cupboards clean. She must look over the shelves daily, wiping them off whenever they need it, and giving them a thorough cleaning at least once a week. The housekeeper should know how to care for various utensils used and understand the simplest and best methods of keeping them clean. Utensils should never be put in the cupboards until perfectly clean and dry. Particular attention should be paid to the care of milk vessels. Pans, pails, pitchers, or bottles in which milk has been kept should be rinsed in cold water, washed in strong, clean soap suds, rinsed in clean boiling water, and dried in the sun. If utensils have become discolored or badly coated, they should be especially scoured. If something has been burned in a kettle, the kettle should be cleaned by filling with cold water, adding washing soda, and boiling briskly for half an hour. After that, a slight scraping ought to remove the burned portion. If the kettle is not yet clean, the process should be repeated. If a kettle has been used directly over a wood fire and becomes blackened with soot, it should be rubbed off with a newspaper and then with an old cloth. Kettles should be dried well before being put away. With proper care, they seldom become rusty. If an iron kettle has rusted, it should be rubbed with kerosene and ashes, then washed in strong hot soda water, rinsed in clear hot water, and dried on the stove. If a kettle is very rusty, it should be covered thoroughly with some sort of grease, sprinkled with lime, and left overnight. In the morning, it should be washed out with hot soda water and rinsed in clear hot water. A new kettle is generally rusty and should be greased thoroughly inside out, allowed to stand for 2 days, then washed in hot soda water. Bath brick should be used for scouring iron utensils and steel knives and forks. If iron pots and frying pans are scrubbed with a piece of bath brick each time they are used and then washed in hot soap suds, they can be kept in good condition. Tinware and steel knives and forks may be cleaned by scouring with ashes, but only fine ashes should be used on tinware. The brown stains on granite utensils should be scoured off, and this ware should be carefully handled in order to avoid chipping. Coffee pots and teapots should be cleaned daily, the grounds removed and the interior of the pots washed out thoroughly. The tea kettle should be washed and dried overnight and left uncovered to air. Preliminary plan. If school lunches are served or cooking lessons are given at the school, it will be well to use this lesson to get the cupboards in readiness. If it is impossible to do this at school, arrange to have a lesson in one of the homes outside of school hours. Be sure that the housekeeper is in sympathy with the work and is willing to cooperate. Method of work. Assign each pupil a task in the cleaning, the scouring of the dishes, and the arrangement of the cupboard. Set a definite amount to be done and carry out the plans, leaving a clean and neatly arranged cupboard at the end of the lesson. Lesson 3. Care of foods. Subject matter. Several important points must be borne in mind if foods are to be kept in a good condition. Most foods change easily. Vegetables and fruits lose water, wilt, and become unfit to eat. Flour and cornmeal become moldy. Potatoes decay and sprout. Some foods, such as milk, turn sour. Eggs become tainted and fat grows rancid. With proper care and handling, storing and keeping, this spoiling can be prevented. The spoiling of foods is due to the presence of microorganisms, and if foods are fresh and sound and kept cool and clean in every way, they will not spoil readily, because such conditions are unfavorable to the development of microorganisms. On the other hand, if foods are roughly handled and bruised, decomposition will take place readily, for microorganisms develop in the bruised portions. Care must, therefore, be taken to select foods wisely, handle them carefully, wash them if they are not already clean, and put them in clean receptacles, and keep them in a clean, cool place. All pots, pans, and dishes in which food are kept or cooked should be thoroughly cleansed and rinsed well, so that no fragments stick to them, which may decay and cause possible infection to the next food that is put in. Every part of the kitchen and storeroom should be kept clean, dry, and well aired. Light is the best germicide and purifier known. Covered receptacles should be secured for all foods. Those that are mouse-proof and insect-proof are essential to a well-kept pantry. All bottles and cans should be neatly labeled and so arranged that each one can be conveniently reached. The outside of the bottle or case should always be wiped off after it has been opened and food has been removed from it. The shelves on which the cases are kept should be wiped off every day. If supplies of fruit or vegetables are kept on hand, they should be looked over frequently, and whatever shows even the slightest suggestion of spoiling should be removed. Bread should be kept in a covered tin box, and the box should be washed out once or twice a week, and frequently scalded and aired. Preliminary plan. If cooking lessons are to be given, it will be well to take this lesson on the care of foods in connection with the first cooking lesson, and to make it a means of arranging for the materials that are to be kept on hand, and of determining how everything is to be handled. Method of work. Devote a large part of the lesson to a discussion of the necessity for care in the handling of storing and keeping of foods. If facilities permit, devote a few minutes to the putting away of foods that are to be used in the next cooking lesson, or in the school lunch, discussing the reasons for such care. Lesson 4. Disposal of waste. Subject matter. If the daily disposal of waste is attended to, there will be no undesirable accumulation of garbage. Scraps of food that cannot be utilized for the table should be fed to the pigs or the chickens and should not be allowed to stand and gather flies. A covered pail or pan should be used for holding the garbage until final disposal is made of it. Those portions that are badly spoiled and will be of no value in feeding the stock should be burned at once. Waste vegetable substances, if suitable, should be fed to the stock, and if not, should be buried in a thin layer on the ground at some distance from the house, so that they may enrich the soil. Old papers that are badly soiled should be burned, but all others should be kept for use in cleaning the stove, starting the fires, etc. Empty cans should be well washed and buried so that they will not prove a breeding ground for flies. It is well to pierce them through the bottom immediately after opening them, so that they will not hold water. Dishwater should be emptied at some distance from the house, unless there is a drain nearby. All receptacles that hold water should be carefully emptied, and all depressions in the soil should be filled, in order to prevent mosquitoes from breeding. All wastewater should be used on the garden. Protection of the water supply. Only the water from deep wells should be used for drinking purposes, because all surface water and water in shallow wells becomes dangerous through seepage from compost, pig pens, privies, and other places, where decayed organic matter may accumulate. In order that the water may be kept clean, the well must be supplied with a tight-fitting top which need not be opened, and a metal pump to bring up the water. A well platform that allows the water spilled on it to run back into the well is unsafe, for any filth carried on the platform in any way will be washed directly into it. Rats, mice, and other animals get into the well if the top is not tight, and these, in addition to being unpleasant, are liable to introduce disease germs. Simple disinfectants. Sunshine and fresh air are nature's disinfectants, and should be freely admitted to every part of the house. Windows should be left open wherever possible. The windows in the sleeping rooms should always be opened at night. The interior of the house should be kept perfectly dry. Decay does not easily take place in dry places. A damp cellar should be drained, and the grounds around the house should not be allowed to drain into the cellar. Coarse coal ashes should be used to fill in around the house, on the walks, etc., to help in securing thorough drainage. Wood ashes may be used as a simple disinfectant to cover decayed organic matter. Whitewash is a good disinfectant and should be frequently used both inside and outside the house, and on all outbuildings. Kerosene and creosote also make good disinfectants. Care of out-of-door closets. The privy should be so arranged that it may be cleaned often, and all excreta disposed of in a safe way. The building should be so well constructed that there will be no cracks for the admission of flies. In a poorly constructed building, old paper can be pasted over the cracks to make the structure fly-proof. Dry earth, street dust, or lime should be frequently sprinkled over the excreta, and the seat should be closed to prevent the entrance of flies or mosquitoes. The seat should be washed frequently, and both the seat and the floor scrubbed at least once a week. Preliminary plan. It will be well to teach this lesson at a time when improvements are necessary in the care of the schoolhouse. The discussions in regard to out-of-door closets will, of course, be taken when the girls are alone with the teacher. Method of work. Discuss the disposal of waste, the care of garbage, etc., in the home and the school. Talk over the care of waste from the school lunch and discuss methods of keeping the school in a sanitary condition. Follow this by general cleaning of the schoolhouse. Lesson 5. Making soap. Subject matter. Homemade hard soap. 6 pounds of fat, 1 can of lye, 1 part cold water, 1 tablespoon borax. Melt the fat slowly. Mix the lye and water in a bowl or kettle. Do not use a tin pan, stirring with a stick until the potash dissolves. Add the borax and allow the mixture to cool. Cool the fat, and when it is lukewarm, add the lye, pouring it in a thin stream and stirring constantly. Stir with a smooth stick until about as thick as honey, and continue stirring for 10 minutes. Pour the mixture into a box and allow it to harden. Cut into pieces the desired size and leave in a cool, dry place for 10 days to ripen before using. When making the soap, be careful not to spill potash or lye on the hands, as it makes a bad burn. If the hands are burned, rub them with grease at once. Do not wet them. Preliminary plan. Sometime before this lesson is given, ask the pupils to bring scraps of fat from home. See that these are in good condition and weigh them to determine the portion of the recipe that can be made. Ask one of the pupils to bring sufficient borax for the recipe. Method of work. Let the pupils look the fat over and put it on to melt, watching it carefully. While it is heating and cooling, discuss the process of soap making, the cost of materials, the care necessary in the making of soap, and the importance of its use. Get ready the other materials in a box for molding the soap, and let the pupils work together. After the soap is hardened and been cut, have it put away on a shelf to dry. Lesson 6. Setting and clearing the table. Subject matter. The following points must be remembered when a meal is to be served. The dining room must be clean, well aired, sufficiently lighted, and in good order. The table must be perfectly clean and covered with a clean white cover, tablecloth, doilies, paper napkins, or oilcloth. A vase of flowers or leaves or a small potted plant in the center of the table will help to make it attractive. A table should be prepared with everything necessary for serving the meal, but only those foods should be placed on it that will not be spoiled by standing. If there is danger of the food attracting flies, cover it carefully. Plates for everyone who is to partake of the meal should be arranged at equal distance from one another, and half an inch from the edge of the table. The knife should be placed at the right of the plate with the cutting edge toward the plate and 1 inch from the edge of the table. The fork should be placed on the left of the plate with the tines turned up and 1 inch from the edge of the table. The spoon should be placed, bowl upward, at the right of the plate, to the right of the knife. It should be placed 1 inch from the edge of the table. Spoons and forks for serving should be placed at the right and left of the dish to be served, or in another convenient position. No one should have to use the personal fork or spoon for serving. The napkins should be folded simply and placed on the left of the fork. The tumbler should be placed at the upper end of the knife. The cups and saucers should be placed to the right of the plate with the handle of the cup toward the right. The bread and butter plate, if used, should be placed at the upper left hand of the fork. The salt cellars and pepper shakers should be placed near the center of the table, or at the sides where they can be conveniently reached. Individual salt cellars, if used, should be placed immediately in front of the individual plate. The chair should be placed at the table after it is set. Care should be taken not to put them so close to it that it will be necessary to move them after they are occupied. Preliminary plan. If possible, arrange to give this lesson before Lesson 8 in the series of 20 lessons in cooking is given. Then the emphasis in that lesson may be put upon the food to be served, proper combinations, etc., while this lesson gives the drill in the arrangement and handling of the dishes. It is desirable to give the pupils a thorough drill in table setting and table service, since much of the pleasure derived from eating depends upon the attention paid to these processes. Be careful to see that everything necessary is on hand to set the table simply but daintily. For class practice, a small table may be set for 4. This will necessitate a table cover, 4 or more dinner plates, 4 bread and butter plates, 4 tumblers, 4 cups and saucers, 4 knives, 4 forks, 4 teaspoons, 4 napkins, a salt cellar, a pepper shaker, a platter, 1 serving spoon, 1 serving fork. If these things are not already in the school, probably they can be brought from home by the pupils. If linen cloths are not used and cannot be afforded on the tables in the homes, the children should be taught to use a white oilcloth. Have a diagram made on the blackboard by one of the pupils of the arrangement of an individual place at the table. Method of work. The process of table setting should be demonstrated with the materials at hand, and the work should be adapted to home conditions. If there is no individual table in the schoolroom, the desktops may be used for individual places. Reasons for the arrangement of the table should be given. The convenience of placing the knives and the spoons to the right, the forks to the left, the cup and saucer and the tumbler to the right, the use of the napkin, etc. Lesson 7. Waiting on table. Subject matter. The one who is to wait on table must be careful to see that everything is in readiness before the meal is announced, so that she can do her work easily without subjecting those at the table to unnecessary delay. She should have water, bread, and butter if used, hot dishes ready for the hot foods, and dessert dishes conveniently at hand. She must see that her hands are perfectly clean and her hair and dress in order. A clean, neat apron will always improve her appearance. The room should be clean and neatly arranged. If the meal is to be a family one and all are to sit at the table together, plates will be passed from one to another as they are served. But it will still be well to have one person appointed to wait on the table. She should be ready to supply more bread, water, etc. when it is necessary, and to change the plates for the dessert course. She should rise from the table quickly and quietly in order not to disturb others, and should take her place again as soon as the necessary service has been rendered. The following rules should be observed. Hold the tumblers near the bottom, being careful not to touch the upper edge. Fill only 3/4 full. Put the butter on the table just before the meal is announced and serve in neat, compact pieces. Cut the bread in even slices, pile them neatly on a serving plate and place it on the table, covering it with a clean napkin or towel, if there are flies about or there is danger of dust. If preferred, the bread may be cut at the table as required. Place the dessert dishes at one end of the table, or better still on a side table, until it is time to use them. When carrying the dishes to and from the table, be careful not to let the fingers come in contact with the food. Learn to place the hand under the dish. In particular service, a napkin is used between the hand and the dish, or a tray if the dish is a small one. The tray should be covered with a napkin or doily. When a dish is being passed, hold it at the left of the person to be served, and at a convenient height and distance. Be sure that each dish is supplied with a spoon or fork for serving, and turn the handle of the spoon or the fork toward the one to be served. If a plate is to be placed in front of a person, set it down from the right. Never reach in front of others at the table. When a course is finished, remove the dishes containing the food first, then the soiled plates, knives, and forks. Be careful to handle only a few dishes at a time and not to pile them. If another course is to be served, remove the crumbs from the table, using for the purpose a napkin and plate, or a crumb tray and brush, and brushing the crumbs lightly into the plate. Fill the tumblers and arrange the dishes and forks or spoons quickly for the next course. When the meal is over, the chair should be moved back from the table, the dishes neatly piled and carried to the kitchen sink, the table wiped, the crumbs brushed from the floor, and the room aired. Preliminary plan. Let this lesson be the continuation of the previous one, placing emphasis on the method of waiting on table. The same articles will be required as were used in the last lesson. In addition to these, the pupils must be careful to have clean aprons for this lesson. Method of work. Have the table set as a review of the work of the last lesson, then have 4 or 6 of the pupils seat themselves and go through the forms of serving one another to any simple meal upon which the class may decide. Family meal service should be explained and demonstrated first, then service where there is one waitress. Have the pupils in turn act as waitresses and serve all the others, offering and placing the food, removing the soiled dishes, filling the tumblers, etc. Lessons 8 and 9. General cleaning of a room. Subject matter. Rooms which are in constant use should be swept and dusted every day. A thorough cleaning of each room in the house will be necessary every week or 2, even though the room is swept and kept in order daily. First, all cupboards, drawers, and other receptacles in which articles collect should be cleaned. Then all large movable articles should be dusted and moved out of the room. Those that are not readily movable should be dusted and covered. The floor should be swept with the windows open. The ceiling and walls should be brushed with a covered broom and the dust allowed to settle. The floor should then be wiped with a damp cloth on the broom. The woodwork should be cleaned with a damp cloth and a soap that is not too strong. Soda or sapolio should not be used. The furniture should be carefully uncovered and everything arranged in perfect order. If the floor is of unfinished wood, it will require a thorough scrubbing. After sweeping the floor and allowing the dust to settle, a small portion at a time should be scrubbed with a floor brush and soap. When scrubbing, the grain of the wood should be followed. The scrubbing water should be changed frequently. For rinsing and drying the floor, cloth should be wrung out of clear water. Things that are highest should be dusted first, and care should be taken to collect all the dust in the dust cloth. After collecting the dust, the cloth should be shaken out of doors, washed thoroughly and boiled. The dust cloth should be dampened before using on all surfaces except the polished furniture and windows. Sweeping should be done with short strokes, and the broom should be kept close to the floor, so that the dust will not be scattered. The corners of the room should be swept first, the dust gathered in the center, and swept into the dustpan. The dust should be burned, for it may contain disease germs. Loose hair and fluff should be removed from the broom after using, and it should also be washed periodically. Small rugs should be cleaned out of doors. They should be swept, beaten, and reswept, then rolled until ready to be put on the floor. If the rug is a large one and cannot be removed, it should be wiped over with a damp cloth, rolled, and the underside of the rug and floor beneath it should be wiped. After the room has been cleaned, the window should be arranged so that a supply of clean air can come constantly into it. This is essential to every room in the house, if perfect health is to be maintained. Preliminary plan. It will be well to have Lesson 9 given in one of the homes some day after school hours, if possible. If that cannot be arranged, the schoolroom may be utilized as the place for practice. Method of work. Devote Lesson 8 to discussion of the methods of cleaning and to various short tasks in connection with the schoolroom. In Lesson 9, have the pupils go through the entire process of cleaning a room. Assign some portion of the task to each one of them so that all may take part in the work. Supervise the work carefully, assign home practice, and have each pupil clean a room at home once a week for a month. And with that handy life advice there, I'm going to call it a night. While there's a lot of traditional gender roles in this sort of thing, I think there's some interesting methodology for pretty much anybody who's trying to keep their house clean. And maybe this is more useful than I thought when I was going to start. So if you're interested in picking up where I've left off, you can find it on Project Gutenberg at the link in the show notes. Thanks again for joining me on this episode of Sleepy Time Tales, the podcast designed around a bedtime story to help you to get a restful night. New episodes will be released every Sunday night to give you something fresh to help you rest in a new week. But make sure to subscribe in whatever service you use so that you get your new episodes whenever they come out. A reminder that the music for tonight is Sweet Night and Friends by Kumiku. Check out more of their work on their website, which you'll find linked in the show notes. Good night, and sweet dreams.